Who's this Epos Vox guy, and why is he making a gameplay commentary? It's really weird to think that at one point in time, this was all of the content that I made. This was what I looked forward to doing every day, and yet I don't do it very often anymore. And I've never really talked about, at least as far as I can remember, any, full explanation as far as why I stopped making gaming content and why I kind of left the scene, so to speak. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about why I stopped making gaming videos, why I stepped away from a lot of gaming stuff online. On the whole, I still talk about it with my friends, I still play games when I can, but something that really contributed towards me getting burned out both on the content scene and just on gaming in general. So, yeah. I've never been someone who connected with people who discuss quitting social media or their social media addiction or trying to find something to fill their time instead of scrolling through Facebook feeds or what have you. I've done a lot in my life to exercise self-control over those tendencies, and I think I've done a pretty good job so far. I've never really, shared that idea that maybe I'm addicted to it or I just can't stop checking it, or generally the idea that I'm affected by other people's lives, of them having the hashtag Instagram life of fast cars and big houses, and that making me feel bad about myself or that I'm not living like them. That's not really something that affects me. But what does affect me is when everybody is so constantly negative about everything. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's this very idea of people being unable to be excited for or happy about something because they care too much, or they have nothing else going on in their lives that they need to be so negative about it, or otherwise just like needing to fume or vent their, the negativity that they experience in their day-to-day life towards something a bit more abstract. That way they can kind of let it out. And that typically seems to come out by attacking forms of media. So entertainment, your movies, your remakes, your games, your music. Oh, that new album was horrible. What are they doing? That Aladdin remake looks like trash. How dare Will Smith replace Robin Williams? How could they? That Prince Ali scene is just horrible. Oh, that new game remake is just the worst. Why don't they leave it alone like the others? And while there's more examples, but while there is something to be said for criticism, and especially as someone who has spent most of his life being a critic and a skeptic, there's certainly a place for it. But everyone these days seems to vent it so negatively, so much with so much toxicity, that it really seeps in and affects everyone. And I've actually spent the past, 5 or 6 years since I really broke away from the gaming scene. This particularly started around Halo 4's launch. I had switched away from making, bedroom, closet, myself gameplay commentaries, and at the time I had switched to doing cooperative Let's Play stuff with my wife, at the time girlfriend, and, focusing on more fun stuff in general. But I was really hyped for Halo 4's launch, and I thoroughly enjoyed the different take on the franchise. There were some little quirks with multiplayer, but the campaign was a fresh, new experience for Halo for me, and the multiplayer was fun for me as someone who didn't want to be MLG Pro at that point in my life. All of that was like 3 or 4 years prior. I enjoyed it, and the entire Halo scene was so up in arms about it. The BR fire rate wasn't, or, shots to kill wasn't the same. The campaign was horrible. It was a completely different direction. It was the worst thing in the world. And it really ruined the experience for me. Like, I ended up just not playing very much Halo 4 because the community and the scene that I was so heavily involved in at the time was so negative about it. It was so bad. Like, it was really just enough to sour my mood every time I tried to look into something about Halo or talk to somebody about Halo. And fast forward to Halo 5, I was again equally as hyped for it. And then when it wasn't very good, I didn't really spend my time just like yelling at 343 or spending my time harping on it or anything like that. I just moved along. I was like, wow, that was a disappointment. I'm happy to discuss it calmly if anyone else brings it up, but I'm not just going to sit there proclaiming it to be the worst game in the world and needs a redo over and over and over. That's a terrible use of my energy and my time. Why not go play something I enjoyed? And that was actually something that I remember my buddy Lagundo posed, because I was a big advocate for fixing the MCC collection, or MCC, because in my mind it was unacceptable to leave it in a broken state. I was trying to be as not toxic as possible because I came on to Xbox One pretty late, so by the time I got there, the whole community had already beaten that horse dead to a pulp. But, you know, I did want to express some interest, and he posed the question, like, if they fixed it tomorrow, would you keep playing it? And my answer was yes, because instead of forcing myself to play a game that I didn't enjoy, like Halo 5, I wanted to just go back and play Halo 3, which I did enjoy. And I knew that, like, you know, it would be my old reliable. It's been an enjoyable game for like 12 years now. Same thing with Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare Remastered. I don't play it a ton, but I turn it on every once in a while when I need a shooter to play that's mindless and my muscle memory kicks in and I'm good to go. It is an enjoyable experience. So yeah, if they gave me all the gun unlocks or something, I'd keep playing it. You know, that seemed like such a baffling question for me. But the more that it set in, the more that it becomes clear that people just force themselves in the gaming community specifically to stick with games that they don't enjoy, and then they need to vent about it, especially with the streaming culture. I just watched a Doc highlights video, and he was complaining about playing Apex, and he's just like, are there no games out anymore? And I'm sitting here looking at my thousands of games in my backlog that honestly I will never get to in my entire life, but I would like to think that I'd get to play. And I just can't imagine forcing myself to play a game that I'm not enjoying and then complaining that there aren't any games to play. There's millions of games out there. Go play something else. And I realize that there's this whole social obligation to play the game that is popular on Twitch and yada yada, but it breeds this ongoing toxic culture of just constantly complaining about everything, being negative about everything, and not really just appreciating something. Like, video games are fun. There's no reason to be so negative and salty and toxic about video games. They are fun. They are something you should enjoy. They are something that I am passionate about, and I want to share that passion. And sometimes that passion does come with criticism, but not with toxicity. And more recently, this has caught my mind again because this has started to affect me from social media, from things that don't have to do with video games. Like, again, as I mentioned, the Aladdin trailer. I didn't mind the Prince Ali musical number. It was clearly an early preview cut. It was clearly missing half the scene. There could be some improvements, but it's all right. Going back and watching, someone had linked in the Twitter, feed of all the people talking about it. Someone had linked the original animated one. It's not like it really stuck out to me all that much. Aladdin was never one of my top movies, but yeah, it was different because there were some quirks to it that were animated and, the good old 90s racism involved. But I'm fine with the Will Smith one as well. They are separate entities. I don't know. You can think it's not great, but not be so negative and toxic about it as people are. And it just seeps into everything. Movies, music, anything having to do with entertainment value where you want exactly what you want, but you don't know what you want. And if the latest Game of Thrones season played out exactly like you wanted, you would have just complained that it was too predictable because you already knew what you wanted and you really wanted to be surprised. You have just decided that you didn't like this surprise. It baffles me, and this kind of thing is why I stepped away originally from gaming content, and it may be the thing that eventually does drive me to step away from social media, despite the fact that I said I wouldn't be one of those people. That kind of thing is what will push me to that point, because it managed to burn me out on and push me away from one of my favorite forms of entertainment of my entire life, and that was video games. But I am probably coming back to it with a renewed passion. I want to be positive about things. I will still be critical where necessary, but never toxic. That is always my goal. And so you might see some more gaming content sometimes, but I got to figure out who's going to edit it and when, because I'm always way overbooked. But I just wanted to provide an explanation of why I stepped away from it when this was my full-time focus back in 2011, 2007 through 2013 basically, or 14 was, this was my focus, and I stepped away, and this is why. So thanks so much for watching. If you've been on this channel for any length of time, remember the older videos, kudos to you. I can't believe you're still watching. I know there are a couple of you. You are not forgotten. And yeah, I have a couple things I want to talk about, but I just wanted to get this one out, and hope you have a great rest of your week or whatever's going on in your life. And do me a favor, and if you want to be critical about something, try to do so without being toxic. State your criticism and then move along. Don't harp on it. Don't let your criticism overstay its welcome. Don't try to ruin other people's enjoyment of it. If someone else says they enjoy it, it is not your place to go in and say, no, I think it sucks. There's a time and a place to share your opinion, and your opinion is still valid and whatever. I get annoyed by some of that stuff. But like, your opinion is still valid and worth, having. And there are times and places where it is right to share. But if someone else enjoys something, it's not your responsibility to come in and tell them not to enjoy it because you don't enjoy it. And that's a big thing. I just would love to see you erased from the world. Like, of all things to like Thanos snap out of the world, that would be it.